And then we go to this phase that after this time it's dry. I don't know if we got a picture of that, but we have one of the kilns that we'll show. If you've got that, Jack, I know you had pulled that up. I want to just show you what a kiln looks like. This is one here. You could see kind of the kiln and you could see the vessels. It's not real clear, but it kind of gives you a picture of what that looks like as it goes into the kiln, as it goes into the furnace, as it's going into the fire. Because this is an important stage in our life. Do we have another picture, Jack? Maybe we could show another one. I know you had two of them. And so if you have that other one, we'll pull it. Yes. Okay, this is another one. This is him working at the furnace or the kiln. And he's taking and he's pulling vessels in and out. Okay, that's what he's doing. He's taking them in and out. And it kind of shows you what that looks like. And I love this in James chapter 1, it says, "Count it all a joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." So what is James saying here? He's saying, when he says count it all a joy, the word count means lead the way. That means that when God allows us to go through trials, when God allows us to go through the furnace and that fire, you just say, God, lead the way. Direct me. And it says that we will meet trials. That word meet means that we're surrounded. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever felt in your life that you're surrounded by trials? And you're like, man, in every turn, it's like something is going wrong. God, what is going on? It seems like I can't escape the trial. And then it says to count it a joy. Count this a joy. Rejoice. Because why? Why is James saying it? Because God is doing something in you. And then the trials means the test in which one is approved. Like Abraham. He was tested and he was proved. And the word steadfast means endurance. So this first stage is called the bisque, and it's actually 1,800 degrees. I don't know about you, but that's pretty hot. And when you're in that fire, it's when we want to pull out. I think about that story with Daniel chapter 3 with Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego when, they wouldn't bow down and they wouldn't worship the idol. And one of the leaders of Babylon told Nebuchadnezzar, hey, you got three guys there that aren't listening to you. And it was like, we're not going to bow. When the music plays, we're not going to bow our knee because we only bow our knee to one God. So they were thrust into a fiery furnace. And they told Nebuchadnezzar, they said, look, if you make us Texas toast, then that's fine. We'll fry. But if we die or we live, we are not bowing down, but we know this, God is with us. And when they thrust him into that fiery furnace, what was amazing, he looked up and he saw that another person was with them. It was God. God was with them. And Nebuchadnezzar was taken back and he goes, bring him out, get him out. Because he said, this is like the Son of God, he is in the furnace. And I want to tell you, if you feel like you're in a trial right now and you feel like you're thrust into that furnace that we saw earlier, if you're there, know that God is with you. Know that God is with you. Even though you might feel like everything in your life is being burned up and burned out. But God, what is God doing? Because it builds, what does it do? It builds endurance. I hate to say it, but as nice as you can have a vessel, this vessel over here, it's got to go to the second stage. As nice as this vessel is, it's not been totally in the process. So it's not ready. There's not the endurance in it yet. And many people can look the part. They can look like they're ready. They could be gifted and beautiful. And yet God's like, no, you got to go into the kiln. I want to build. I want you to endure these trials. Why? Because I want you to stand. I don't want you to buckle under the heat. So God allows us to go through that. Remember years ago, I was in my office, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and I was looking out my windows, and have you ever been in a trial that just seemed to go on forever? Have you ever been there? I don't wish it on you. But, I don't even remember exactly what it was. It was probably dealing with relationships and problems and it just, whatever it was, but it was just hanging with me. And so finally, one day I was looking out the window and I was just, having my quiet time. I was frustrated. I'm like, when are you just, in essence, what was I saying? When are you going to pull me out of the fire? I am like getting tired of this fire. And the Lord subtly just spoke to my spirit, just that whisper in your spirit. And he reminded me of James 1. And he said, I'm building endurance in you. And I went back to the scripture as I felt James 1 just come up in me. And I looked at it and I read it. And I realized he's like, look, you're in this because I'm building endurance. You've got to have this endurance for the long haul. If not, you'll crack. And when you're tested, you won't make it. And that trial, that testing, took on a new look. It was like the Spirit of God in me. I'm like, okay, leave me in the fire as long as you need to. I'm good. And you know what I did? I counted it a joy. I counted it a joy. Joy sustained me. I love Isaiah 48:10. It says, I've refined you, but not as silver is refined, but rather I have refined you in the furnace of suffering. So even sometimes in our lives, we go through these times of suffering. And it becomes a part of us. Anita and I, years ago, when we went to the potter's house and we purchased this pottery when I was watching all this being done, and I was talking to David Grant, and this place was in Tennessee, and we picked this one. I said, well, we've got to buy something here, right? And so we bought some pottery, and this was one, and I have it in my office today, and I actually use it as a pen holder, but it reminds me of that time when I went to the potter's house, and it has leaves on it. And then what happens, and I'm going to show you in a minute, they put the glaze before they go into that second furnace or that second kiln that at 2,300 degrees, a little more, a little less. And then you see these leaves, and all of us will have these places of suffering or trials or things in our life. Maybe it's physical sickness, or maybe it's just a relationship disaster or whatever. And you look in your life and God said, that's all right, because whatever you've gone through, if you'll look to me and I'll get you through it, and I will take care of that. I'll clean that thing up and I will make it a part of you. How many people in the Bible does God use? I mean, the Apostle Paul got such the vision. He said, you know what? I'm not going to boast of my accomplishments. I'm not going to boast of all the things that I've done. I'm only going to boast in my weakness, because it's in my weakness that God is glorified. And then we begin to see where God will take those things in our life, and he just makes it a part of our story. That's why you've got to get through. That's why, as Todd was saying today, if you got unforgiveness, you got to forgive. You got to let it go. Because many times we go into the kiln for that reason, that not only does it bring endurance, but it purifies us. It pulls things out of our lives that we didn't know that was there. That we're going before God and saying, God, what is going on? And what is it? It brings it up. Why? Because God is preparing you. God is enabling you to endure. How many people have not finished the race? They start the race so wonderful. They look great. They got the great track shoes and the clothes and the jackets and they got everything. And then, they phase out after several years. They don't finish the race. Paul said, I want to finish the race. Because you will have trials, you'll have hurts. You'll have church hurts. You know, there's church hurts. Am I right? If you stay in a church long enough, you're going to get hurt. You know why? Because the church is full of messy people. And there's people that are hurting the church. And they might say something to you or do something, and you're like, well, that's just, you know, and you know what? Some people stop going to church because they got church hurts. And God's like, no, let me heal those hurts. It's part of the process. I mean, come on. A church family is like a family. Have you not been hurt in your own family? I mean, come on. I had a sister that threw me under the bus. That's on video. Erase that part, will you? All right. David, cut that one out. I don't want him calling me. What was it, Bruce? But you know, you move past it. You get through it. You let God, because you let Christ do that work in you, and you make it a part of your story.